Hello, Editing Joey here. I forgot to say in the podcast that next week we will not have a podcast episode because I will be in Taipei that week. But the week afterwards, 2 weeks from now, normal service will be resumed. For the Patreon subscribers, don't worry, I will have, as always, the uncut episodes, even for that week where I'm away, pre-recorded for you. And now, on to the show. Hello, welcome to He's Hot, but Something is Off. Okay, it's finally getting a little slightly chilly in Los Angeles. Chilly by Los Angeles standards. I think the high today was, looking at my phone, 68 degrees. And it was the first time in a while that we got some rain yesterday. You know, one of the reasons I'm paying the Los Angeles tax is for it to be sunny about 95% of the time. And that's basically what we have. However, sometimes I am nostalgic for rain because I grew up in Vancouver, so basically Pacific Northwest, same weather patterns as Seattle. So a lot of rain. I remember during the college years, when I was living in Vancouver, it was like almost so many days where it was just completely cloudy, kind of dark and gray outside, and it would be a drizzle or like a light rain more often than not, especially from starting from October into February, March. So for a pretty good chunk of the year, I just remember, waking up and, I had to wake up early anyways for college because I always had an 8 a.m. class or I would start work at 8 because I had this part-time job on campus. Well, I guess we should talk about that more, but I never really talked about that job, but I had that for so many years. But I would get up at around just after 6 a.m. most days. Would get ready. I would need to leave the house around 7. If I left the house around 7, it would take almost always like 40 minutes, like door to door, and to the parking lot in the college. I'd be driving for about 40 minutes, and then that would give me just enough time to like walk from whatever parking garage I was in to whatever building my first class was, or the building where I had the part-time job. So, but like so many days, I also remember, so driving there, be like you woke up before sunrise, so it's already dark, and half the time it's like a little bit of rain. It never rains super hard usually in Vancouver, but it's always just like light drizzle, this constant light drizzle during the fall and the winter. It's a little depressing. And then obviously having to walk between buildings on campus. Most of the time, you do need to have an umbrella with you. You know, those umbrellas that fold down to be really compact. So I always had one of those with me in my my school bag, whatever bag I had, because it could rain at any time. You just really don't know. I have so many memories of just walking on campus between buildings, between classes, or to get between class and work, and just walking around in this gray drizzle. So that was like 6 years of my life. Anyways, I did work on campus for forever. I got the job even before my first day in college. Like even before I went to my first class, I secured a job on campus somehow. So I worked for the IT help desk at this college, and it was kind of a great setup because it was a college on-campus job. So I worked for a university, and because of that, they actually had regulations and rules on how many hours the university can employ active students. At most, we could only work, I think, 12 hours per week was like the limit. There were a few departments on campus that hired students, and they all had this rule. So I think the library, maybe at a lot of I don't know about other colleges, but I feel like, not the library, the bookstore, sorry. I think the bookstore is a popular type of place on most campuses where students could maybe get like a part-time job. Yeah, so I remember, I knew that at the bookstore at that college, there were a lot of part-time students that worked there, and they had this like 12-hour maximum. So it was kind of nice because I didn't have to commute between between school and work. And a lot of the times, the shifts at work were just filling up the space between my classes. But sometimes you would have like a weirdly big break. So there were some days where, 8 to 9, I had some lecture. And then my next class might not be till 1 p.m. So from 9 to 1, I had just time to kill. I guess most people would study, but what I would do is I would try to cram a shift in there. And because the help desk hired all students and everyone was basically in that same situation, they were very accommodating with, you can have like an hour shift here and like a 90-minute shift here. You could even have like a 30-minute shift if you wanted to. So at the beginning of every semester, they have a system for everybody to basically submit their availability, like their course schedule. And they were actually very accommodating doing that. Yeah, and I did that for my whole undergrad. I had that set up, which was really, really nice. And I made some really good friends. I think that's one of the longest jobs I've ever had in terms of between your first day there and your last day there. Obviously, like the times when school was out, when I had semester breaks on internships, I wasn't going to that part-time job at the help desk. But yeah, like I worked till I think my first week in college, during my first year, I started working there. It took me 6 years to do my degree, because I had a couple of years of internships. And then I remember when I graduated in, I'm really dating myself now for those of you that are curious. I graduated in 2009. For any of you that knows anything about 2008, 2009 was the Great Recession. And I remember during my last year, I think so, it was in 2008, when the recession started, all the people I knew that was in like the same cohort as me, we were all in like the final year of our degree. We were all just talking about, there wasn't a panic per se, but obviously when you get to your final year in college, just like when you get to your senior year in high school, you start wondering, okay, what am I doing when I graduate? A lot of high schoolers, they are eyeing college or some sort of post-secondary education. But when you do your undergrad, the kind of typical expectation is, let's go, like we're graduating from college, so we're going to go get a job. It's not as popular to go straight from your undergrad and directly into getting like a master's degree. But when I was in my last year in college, there were a lot of talk amongst the people I knew that, they're gonna go get like a master's degree. They're just gonna stay in school. And it wasn't so much like a bleak thing. It was just like, well, let's look at all the options. Quite a few people, when it came to the time when we were looking for jobs, when we had maybe about 1 or 2 semesters left, the semesters or tri-semesters were like 4 months. People were looking for jobs, and the job market was not looking great. So I think for a lot of the people I knew at that time, they didn't want to do a graduate degree. They wasn't their first choice to pursue a master's or to do that 5th year or whatever. The job market wasn't looking good. So if they couldn't get a job, then they would, just try to do graduate studies. And I always feel like maturity-wise, I was always a few years behind my actual age. I felt like when I was 18, not in terms of like my behavior and the way I acted. It's not like when I was 16, I acted like a 13-year-old. But I think in the sense of, I don't know how quite to explain it, but maturity not in the way that not in terms of my behaviors, but I guess in terms of the way I perceive what I should be doing in the world, like my place in society. if you will. When we're supposed to be graduating that last year in college, I was still very much in school mode. That's all I knew. I never really knew. I did the part-time job and that was fine, but I just wasn't even really thinking that seriously about, oh, what was I supposed to do? I knew that, you go to elementary school, then you go to high school, then you go to college, and then you graduate. But I guess the concept of a full-time job was so foreign to me that I wasn't even sure I was entertaining it even. So when all these people were talking about, oh, they're going to go do graduate degrees, do a fifth year, they weren't really going to go into the workforce, I was like, oh, what about me? What should I be doing? And it was just like a complete blank. No idea what I was going to be doing. I was in computer engineering, and we did have some of the big, one or two of the big tech companies did do recruiting days or recruiting sessions on campus. That's pretty popular with, some large companies, is to, go to certain universities and try to recruit some new grads. And I think Microsoft did come, and I think I did do one little interview. They just had a whole bunch of short little interviews, like a pre-screen almost. I really feel like everything I learned, I'm supposed to know how to code. I was supposed to have a master's of, I do have a master's of computer engineering, and my specialization was software engineering. I'm supposed to know how to code. I don't think I can code anything. I really don't think so. But anyways, we were graduating, and then I basically I don't think I was even really looking for a job, honestly. So I graduated, I didn't have a job. And what happened right when I graduated was, it was the summertime. Graduated, my last semester was done in April. And then this help desk part-time job that I had, I've been with them for 6 years now. They happened to have a contract position open where it was full-time, but a temporary full-time contract position that I was able to get because I was one of the more senior, students that had worked for them, because it took me 6 years to do my degree. I've been with them for 6 years. And a few of the other people that also used to be part-time students, they had actually graduated into full-time positions at that help desk. So there was a help desk supervisor coordinator, and that person was someone I worked with as a part-time student. We both were. And then we also had one or two other people that were full-timers that I also worked with when we were all part-time students. So I managed to have something to do. So I ended up that summer being, I don't know what formal title was. It was learning and development or something like that. So basically being responsible for general training and QA, just quality assurance of the agents, the students that work there. So did that for the summer for 4 months, and they extended that another 4 months until the end of 2009. And then what happened was they didn't need that person anymore. So, to ring in the new year, I had this degree that, in the middle of a recession that, I don't know, wasn't particularly useful, and I didn't really have a job. And luckily, I was still living at home. And Chinese parents don't really mind their kids living at home. They kind of like it. It's not like in the Western world. So it was fine. I didn't go out of state or out of my hometown for university. I spent a few months, 3 or 4 months at the very beginning of 2010, just being jobless. I had no idea what I did the first 3 or 4 months. I think I was just doing nothing. Because I do remember trying to look for some local entry-level IT jobs in Vancouver. And I think I got a couple, 2 or 3 offers, but the pay was so low. And for what reason, I just thought, this is such a low amount of pay, even though I didn't really have a reference, that I don't think I should be taking this job. So I ended up not doing it. And I guess at that point, I didn't feel the need to have a full-time job yet. Somehow, going into the spring of 2010, back at that IT department where I used to was doing all the help desk stuff, at the college, they somehow needed someone in their shipping and receiving for the IT department. So the IT department had a help desk, and they also had like other parts of IT. Somehow, I don't know. I don't even fully remember how I got this, but they just needed someone to help with shipping and receiving. Like they had this little loading dock, and there was like a desk at the loading dock, and just needed someone to like help with basic shipping and receiving stuff. I don't even really remember how I got the win of that, or like how my name came up. I completely don't remember. But I ended up doing that. I ended up doing like shipping and receiving. Barely any shipping and receiving. We barely shipped and received anything. I knew nothing about shipping and receiving. I just remember that this like little tiny loading dock. Think of it as like a garage, basically. So there's like a garage door that opened and closed in case a truck needed to like unload something. And we didn't really get many shipments. But there was like a little desk right beside where this like garage door would open and close. And I remember watching a lot of the World Cup, because that was right around the time the World Cup was on in the spring of 2010. So I remember I had this little computer at this little desk, and there was like no one else that worked in shipping and receiving. That's what they just needed, someone to be able to like answer the door whenever a truck dropped by. That was me. Yeah, I just did that. It was an easy job. Once in a while, I have to like tape up some boxes and tape up some labels or create a shipping label. It's really easy. I remember, though, very specifically, I have this photographic memory. This was also the time that just before I got that job, doing that shipping and receiving, it wasn't a full-time job. It was some temporary thing. But just before I got that gig, I got more serious about looking for jobs. And I had recalled when I was, before I graduated, that there was some of these big tech companies that came onto campus to recruit for, primarily for software engineering, or SWEs, if you would. They were trying to recruit for software engineers. But I knew that that was not the thing I was going to do. I spent 6 years doing this degree to basically find out, doing this software engineering degree, to find out I don't want to code. I don't like it. I'm not very good at it. It's not my forte. But I have a piece of paper. I have a computer engineering degree, like the piece of paper that says, oh, you have this engineering bachelor's degree. It's basically not that the piece of paper was what was useful. What I actually was supposed to have learned in class was not. But anyways, it took me 6 years to figure out, trying to study this, that I don't want to do this. But I knew I liked IT and I wanted to be in IT, and all my work experience has been in IT, basically. The 2 years of internships that I did, most of them were IT related, doing IT support internally for various offices for various companies. So that was good experience. That part-time help desk job at the university was really helpful experience. You know, those couple of contract positions with the IT help desk right after I graduated was also a helpful experience. So like I had a decent resume for someone who's a new grad in terms of the amount of IT support experience I have. It's actually pretty decent. So I thought, why don't I just throw some resumes at some big tech companies? In a way, I guess it took some amount of bravery or self-belief, maybe a bit of delusion. But, you know, throwing a resume out is cheap. So I remember being in my bedroom at home, you know, and just looking up, okay, what kind of entry-level IT support positions would like an IBM have, or a Microsoft, or a Google, or whatever. There were positions out there like that. So I just kind of sort of threw out some resumes. And I think I told this story before. I don't know which episode of the podcast, so I won't tell it in its full entirety. I'm sure I've talked about it. We've done too many episodes for me to know exactly what it is. I think that's just a search function. I think it's search the transcripts. But anyways, that was when Google somehow picked up on my resume. And long story short, you know, I did the phone screen with Google. I still remember exactly where I was when I did that initial phone screen with Google. And I also remember that first like interview that I had, because you do a phone screen with the recruiter usually, then you'll do the initial interview. And I very specifically remember like this kind of picture, like this picturesque memory, this photographic memory of, I was in like my I kind of had 2 bedrooms at my mom's place because, we were still in the same house from before my brother and sister had moved out. But by the time I was graduating college, my brother and sister had moved out of the house already. And the house that I grew up in Vancouver, it had 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It has 7 bedrooms. It was 3 levels, including the basement, 2-car garage. It had 7 bedrooms. It had 1, 2, 3, and like 5 bathrooms. But the basement was like the basement could be like a little suite in itself. But the basement had like this giant living room and then 2 bedrooms and also just like extra like space. So it was like a pretty massive house. And my parents bought it when we were all like young kids, when we were all in school. And also when early on when we had the house, we did have like some family friends that would stay with us every once in a while. So early on in when we had that house, we did use up kind of like the space the house needed. But obviously, as my brother and sister got older and they got like, they moved out, by the time it was like 2010, there were so many like free empty rooms. I just took up 2 of the rooms. So I had one room that was just my bedroom. And then I took my brother's old bedroom as the office space. It was actually a really nice setup. So I know we're on a tangent, but this is exactly what this podcast is about. So the bedroom that I slept in was my original bedroom from when I was like really young. And then when I was young, me and my brother shared a bedroom. We had I think it's called a Jack and Jill bathroom. So basically it's a bathroom where there were 2 doors, and the 2 doors led directly into 2 separate bedrooms. So me and my brother, we shared a bedroom. So this Jack and Jill bathroom, it basically had along one wall, you had the toilet in the middle and then 2 identical vanities and counters. So obviously one side was for me, the other side was for my brother. And then on the other wall, across from the toilet, was the bathtub. By the time I graduated college, my brother no longer lived at home. Actually, no, my brother was living home. He moved down to the basement. So he had the entire basement to himself. So I was on the top level. So his old bedroom, that was the Jack and Jill to my bedroom. I took that over as my office. So I remember when I would wake up and then if I wanted to just get over to like my office, I would just cut across the Jack and Jill bathroom. So I basically kind of had this like really nice set. I didn't have to like exit out from one room into the hallway to go into the other room. So it's kind of cool. Yeah, but this office space, I set it up as office/living room. So I had like a little flat screen TV in there, and I also had a little couch, a little sofa, like a love seat, smaller sofa across from the TV. And then against this like window at the front, I had my desk. So anyways, I remember I was in this interview with Google, the first proper interview after the pre-screen. And I'm sitting at this desk in this particular room, which is now my office, which used to be my brother's bedroom, in front of this like giant window that faces the front of the house. And I remember like being on the computer, like kind of sort of semi-Googling some of the things that the interviewer was asking me. But long story short, I remember the first day that I was supposed to start that shipping and receiving job. It was April of 2010. Being in the building where the IT department was, and the IT help desk, the help desk for the IT department was in the basement. So that's like there's the IT help desk room. So I remember it was like morning time. I just gone there. I was supposed to like go see a particular person that I knew from working there about like how to get started. It's like my first day for this job. And I remember I was just like saying hi to various people that I knew because I was working there for 6 years. So there's all these people, not just in the help desk, but also in like some adjacent departments that I knew. So just like chit-chatting and whatever. And then I remember getting a phone call from Google. We had this little hallway that was at the bottom of a staircase in the basement of a building, right outside the room where all the help deskers were. And it's like a small little like weirdly shaped corridor hallway in the basement of a building in college. And there's like no traffic there. Like there's no lecture halls, or students wouldn't go down there. There's only like a few IT rooms down there. So that hallway was usually empty. That was the exact area where I got the call from Google that I got the job that I applied for them. So yeah, I did do the shipping and receiving for them. But it's kind of weird that the first day of that shipping receiving job was also the day that I got the call from Google. They extended me an offer. The job was down in California. So basically, I was doing the shipping receiving for, I don't know, it's like April, May, June, July for like maybe 3 or 4 months. And it was so weird because I remember, okay, I was there for the first day of this like shipping receiving job. That same morning, I got the call from Google, and like obviously I was gonna accept it. Duh, like Google's trying to hire me. Google offered me a job in 2010 when it was the recession was like just over at that point. Was like, how could I say no? Even in normal times, I would say yes. But I remember the first thing I kind of sort of had to do when whoever was supposed to like my manager for the shipping receiving thing, one of the first things I had to tell him that morning was, I just got a call from Google. They hired me and I start in August in California. That was like the way I started off this like shipping and receiving job, was telling them, I don't know what you want to do with me. I'm going to kill some time until August and I'm going to bail out to work for Google. Not with any attitude, but it was just like, hey, I had to be upfront, like, hey, you know, there's some developments here career-wise. Yeah, but I have really fond memories of working at that particular help desk. There were a few spicy phone calls I remember getting. There were a few phone calls earlier on when I did that help desk job, and we had to take phone calls. So we each had our little headset that we would plug in at whatever station we sat down to at work. We did have a walk-up area so people can like walk up, and sometimes we help people in person. Or we would just be answering tickets because people could email us and then we would be doing tickets. I remember earlier on in the help desk career, when I was not as experienced and it was my first time doing phone support, that there were a few times where the customer just came in a little too hot. It was like a more advanced problem and the customer's upset, not at me, but at the problem, where I did have to hand it off to someone more senior for them to take it. So it's very, very tier one. You know, eventually, after like a few years, I became one of the more senior help deskers. And then there were quite a few, you know, more junior people that had joined the team. And I became the person that sometimes, you know, took those escalations, if you will. They did have like a tier system. We had like tier ones and tier twos. One of the most memorable things I remember from that job is we had these phones, and like we have these like fancy phone systems, like a call center phone system, and we all had to like log into the phone. And a lot of times multiple people would be logged in. We have multiple help deskers, right? One phone would ring and then the next one was supposed to ring. It was supposed to be some sort of like round robin system, the way that the incoming calls are supposed to be distributed to all of the help deskers that were active and logged in at the time. What you would usually do is you're on a phone and you're helping someone, and then the phone call ends. What we're supposed to do is we're supposed to basically take a little bit of time to finish typing up the ticket. And they all taught us this, and they like said it's something we have to do. But when you're actively on the phone helping someone, you don't always have time to type up everything about that call into the ticketing system. So what we would do is the call ends, there's a little button called not ready on the phone. What you're supposed to do is when you're done with the call, you press that not ready button, and then your phone wouldn't ring because you're on not ready status. So for as long as you're on that not ready, then your phone won't ring. Then you know, okay, I can take a minute or whatever to like finish typing the ticket. If I needed a bathroom break, then I can go to the bathroom. You know, you're still logged in, but you're just like unavailable. Your phone wouldn't ring when the not ready button is pressed. Apparently, some of the help deskers found that you could game the system with this not ready button. So let's say there were 2 help deskers logged in. So me and one other person. Phone call number 1 comes in, I get it. Then the next phone call is supposed to go to them. The third phone call goes to me. And then we just go back and forth, right? What this little trick some of the help deskers found was that if they double clicked on the not ready button, they would not get the next phone call. Okay? And you can do it really, really subtly. But it's like the phone doesn't beep when you press a button. You can like really subtly just like double tap on the button. You couldn't stay on not ready because one of the metrics that they looked at was how much time during your shift you were on not ready. If you had a 1 hour shift and you were on not ready for like 30 minutes, like it's a metric that they can very easily pull. So you can't just stay on not ready. So I think the supervisor management people didn't really know about that trick until some of the help deskers complained about, hey, I don't seem to be getting as many calls as whoever when I had to shift with this other person. And we were the only two people there and we were like sitting side by side. It seemed like I was getting more calls. Apparently they looked into it more, but I think the management people weren't aware of this little trick. They eventually knew what they're looking for when they dug into it. They did fire, I think, a couple of people for that. I didn't even know about that trick until like that whole bombshell had came out somehow. Because I think then eventually they warned people, hey, we know about this trick and we're looking for it, so don't do it. But I think that was after they fired someone. Is it wrong that I felt no remorse that this person got fired? But I think if you were trying to very actively do less than your fair share of the work in a, I think malicious is a pretty strong word. I think there were some night shifts as well. I think eventually, in the later years, we were open till like 7 or 8 p.m. So they had to keep some people on, and a lot of the times they would have 2 people on the night shifts. And the person who got fired, it was during a night shift that they were doing this in particular. So basically, the other person got shafted. I don't know. I never felt any sympathy for the person that got fired. Maybe, do I even remember who it is? I mean, I worked there for so many years, and students come and go, but students only really are doing their degree for 4 years usually. So like, it was kind of, I think it was someone that, not that I didn't like them, but I had no reason to like them. If that makes any sense. I don't think I knew that person super well. I don't know. I think maybe I just thought he was like a little weird or something like that. But I felt absolutely no remorse or any sort of sympathy for the person that got fired. I kind of sort of, in a way, kind of liked it. But it's like, I don't want to work with someone that is going to cause me to get more tickets and phone calls than the other person. But I was still very straight-laced. I was a good worker at that time still anyways. I want to do my share of tickets, and I had a really good relationship with quite a lot of the people there. We were friends, and for example, like with a bunch of them, I actually took a trip during college to Tokyo, and they invited me, and I went with them. So they were also friends as well, and we had like a really great dynamic because we were all students, and we were kind of sort of in that same boat. And it was cool that they hired all students to do the help desk. So yeah, I got on really well. So I was just like, oh yeah, let's like divide up the work and kumbaya and whatever. But to find out after they got fired that you're kind of throwing other people under the bus for your benefit in a way. Malicious is a strong word, but I think technically is ill intent. Isn't that what malicious is? Anyways, yeah, so that's interesting. That was a part of my of my early adult years that I don't think about very, very much. But I was very thankful that for having that job, that part-time student help desk job, because I'm sure if I didn't have that job for as many years as I did, Google would not have hired me. Because I think one of the reasons Google hired me was for an IT support position, was because I had so much IT support experience. Because I did that, and I had two of my 3 internships were internal IT support for offices for 2 different companies. The third of my 3 internships, I did a internal corporate webcasting gig, which one day we'll talk about that. I think that podcasting gig had a few interesting stories that I think I can tell now. Yeah, but because I had like 8 months doing internal IT support for this one company, another 8 months of internship doing internal IT support for this other company, and I was doing the like help desk thing kind of on and off for like 6 years. And then I also had this like 8-month contract right after I graduated with that same college IT help desk, I felt like, I had a lot of that experience. And if I didn't do those internships, if I didn't have this kind of part-time on-campus IT job, Google wouldn't have hired me. It was very strategic for me to do as many internships as possible, because one of the very few smart things I did during college was I somehow had this smart idea to let's do as many internships as possible to get as much experience as possible to build up our resume, so that when we graduate, that will be a relative advantage to other people that didn't do internships. I don't know where I got that idea from, but it was like one of the smartest things I've ever done. Like, bar none, one of the smartest decisions I ever made was to participate in the internship program. Because the internship was a completely optional thing. It wasn't like pushed on you. You kind of had to take your own initiative to do it. And somehow I found that out early to want to do this program. And you only, by default, you would do 2 internships. And you would do 2, and sometimes they were just 4 months. Like the length of one semester. Somehow I got it in there early on to be like, okay, no, I want to do long 8-month internships that would span 2 semesters, and I want to do as many as possible. And you could do a third one if you wanted to, knowing that it would push back your graduation date. So my original graduation date, if I didn't do internships, I would have graduated in 2007. I think the recession, did it start right after that? 2008? I don't remember the dates, but it was a little bit of misfortune, graduating, after the Great Recession had hit. But it was somehow like a stroke of luck and genius that I had been maxing out on work experience. I was either doing an internship full time, or when I was doing school, I was doing this part-time job. Basically, I was always employed and getting experience. So that was a really great advantage for me. And I definitely know that if I didn't have all that experience, I wouldn't have been able to get that Google job. And my life would have been very, very different. And I wouldn't be sitting to you. I mean, I would be alive, obviously, at some point, but I wouldn't be sitting here in my condo in Los Angeles talking to you about this right now. Sometimes I think, if just one little thing happened, if I just didn't get that job, that one little thing had taken a different turn. Sometimes you wonder what if this didn't happen, or this one other thing didn't happen? What if this turned out a little differently? What if I didn't get that job offer? I really feel like getting the job offer from Google changed my life so much, because I moved down to California. I had a job in tech in Silicon Valley, and just from there, my life would be so completely different. But I guess everybody kind of has points in their life where they look back at that point where what if this turned out a little bit different? My life would be on a completely different trajectory. All right. So that was a little trip down memory lane. As an additional plug, I was supposed to get my plugs up at the top, but I never do. Let me get better at plugging stuff. It's not really in my it's not in my nature to do plugs, but I do have the Gay Cruise and Travel podcast, which is now sponsored by JustJoeyTravels. So please go follow me there. All the travel related, cruise related stuff is always on that podcast now. And it's a bit of fun over there. I just posted an episode this week about the top reasons why cruisers might miss the initial boarding for a cruise, and all the ways to avoid that and avoid being a statistic to make sure that you get on the cruise that you booked. And we also have my Just Joey Travels Instagram. So Just Joey Travels, the travel advisory business, has its own separate Instagram. Please go follow it. Please, 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 please. Should I do something special for listeners of this podcast that follow my Just Joey Travels Instagram? You know what? If you go follow my Just Joey Travels Instagram, and you let me know about it somehow, maybe I'll do something for you. I don't know. I'll give you a discount to my Patreon. I'll do something. Just let me know, and I'll try to reward you in some way. All you have to do is follow Just Joey Travels on Instagram, and then let me know. Comment down in the YouTube comments for any of my podcast episodes, just to say you did it. Say like, hey Joey, I follow your Just Joey Travels Instagram, and then I don't know, I'll do something. Like, let me know what you want. I won't just do anything. I'm not for hire like that. Okay, but like what do you want? I think I can do free trials on my Patreon. Let me know what you want. And the first obvious thing I can think of is, why don't I give you a little free trial to my Patreon, or like a heavy discount on it, and then you can, get access to the uncut episodes of this podcast. And then you can also access, at one of the higher tiers, you can access all the travel vlogs that I've done. There are dozens, I think by now, dozens of travel vlog videos that are up there now. Yeah, so go follow Just Joey Travels on my Instagram. I'm trying to build that up. And then just let me know somehow that you followed it. And then let's get you some free / super cheap access to my Patreon so that you have a little extra content to consume. But until next time, bye y'all.